Welcome back to Rebel Radio. I'm so excited for today's conversation with Caitlin, a dear friend of mine who I met several years ago at Shine Live. And now here we are again on Rebel Radio. Welcome, Caitlin, to the show.
Thank you so much. I know it's so fun to reconnect in this way. I was
Absolutely.
actually just thinking about Shine, which was like pretty much exactly just over 3 years ago, right? I can't believe that.
How time flies, right?
It does. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about who Caitlin is, what you do. Tell us who you are.
Well, yeah, great question. So I'm originally from Canada, and that's also part of why it was exciting for me to go to that event in Canada where we met a few years ago, because I actually live in the south of Mexico. I've lived here for 9 years, and I've lived internationally for more than 15 years. So it was fun to go back to an event on my home turf after spending time and working online really too. So I worked internationally, and then I've been working online. And where do I start about me? I run a program called Redefining Sobriety, as you can see next to my name, which has been an evolution of my own personal and also professional journey to support women who struggle with alcohol, predominantly women, although the community is expanding now, which is great. Mm-hmm. And really it comes from, as I said, my own personal journey. And at the time when I was really struggling with my alcohol use, there weren't a lot of resources out there. Now there are a lot more, which is amazing. If you go onto Instagram and, hashtag sober life, sober curious, sober coach, there's like a million different options, which is amazing. At the time, 8 years ago now, there really weren't. So I sought to create something that I felt like I needed. And something that ultimately has been a lot more based in something called harm reduction. And for those of you that might not be familiar with that term, harm reduction is, it was actually my profession for a number of years, which is a kind of like a policy and also resource-based approach to supporting people who struggle with drugs predominantly. And it's the idea that every single person deserves the right to receive treatment, information, support, care, health services, whatever it is, anywhere along the spectrum. So if that means that you want to be abstinent and seek an abstinence-based treatment or recovery program, great. If you're still using and what you need in that moment is a clean needle, great. We meet you where you're at every step of the way. And it's an approach that really just like honors the human being and their fundamental right to health and happiness. Whatever is going on in their lives. And so I realized that after kind of 10 years in that career and then switching gears and going into health coaching and then finding kind of my own way through healing my relationship to alcohol, that a lot of that professional experience that I had in harm reduction has really, it permeates everything that I do with Redefining Sobriety, which is basically, each person gets to define their own path, which I think is, it's a beautiful thing. It's also an interesting thing when you run group programs, how do you really honor each individual within a group? But I love it, and it keeps me on my toes also and keeps me learning. And, I just love people, and people fascinate me, and I feel, it's a really beautiful thing, I think, to be able to just meet people.
Absolutely. I love that. And this is such important work in the world, to just honor human beings. I think in whatever fashion, however we work with people, is to just be able to honor them. And I love that. So thank you for doing good work in the world.
Thank you. Yeah.
So before we got on the show, I shared some numerology with you.
You did.
What was one of your biggest takeaways that you received from me sharing that with you?
So I think I'm ruling number 9, I just learned. And I think for me that, it's so fascinating because I knew that we were going to be talking about my work and what I do with Redefining Sobriety. And what you said about me being a mirror for all of the other numbers and basically a reflection for all other humans makes so much sense to me, because that's what I do in my program. And it really is. And sometimes people say it to me, like, how do you do that? How do you honor each person? How do you say everybody is really welcome here, but actually mean it, because I think sometimes we hear that, but then our own unconscious biases or our judgments or our frustrations, especially, if you see people kind of repeating certain patterns or habits or falling back into old, like, I don't really like using the word relapse, but, so it was that one for just right. That was one of the first things you said to me, but it was so profound because I think that's really how I show up in work, but also interesting timing. Yesterday was my birthday. And like, when you look at like the group of people that came to celebrate my birthday, I was like, there's like so many different people who are my friends. And it's so funny because it kind of feels like that as well. Like I don't have a type.
Right.
I don't have a type romantically. I don't have a type. Like, I've dated people across all genders and sexualities. And so it's like, it's really, I'm still processing because you just shared this with me, but I'm like, wow, this is definitely really relevant in my work and also really relevant in my friendships and also really relevant in my relationships. So very interesting.
Love it. Love it so much. That's why I love numerology, because it always kind of opens up a new perspective for everybody that I share it with. So yeah, that's awesome. So what does self-mastery mean to you? I feel like this is such a subjective subject. It's like, define success. What does self-mastery mean to you?
That's such a good question. So for me, I feel like and especially those of us that are raised female, we, from a young age, learn to not trust ourselves. And I think our school system in general does that. However, we as a society often like prioritize boys in different ways. And so I think for those of us that are raised female, we learn to look outside of ourselves for approval. We learn to look outside of ourselves for our sense of okayness. We learn to be of service to others, which is also a beautiful thing, but we really get validated for that. And I think for many of us as adults is this process of sort of coming back home into ourselves and really understanding what is our truth and what we want to be spending our time doing and how to appraise ourselves. And to me, that's what self-mastery, it really requires first and foremost for us to even understand what it is that we want, what we desire. We might be easier at identifying what we don't want sometimes, what doesn't feel good. And then from there, also being able to really support and celebrate ourselves through whatever it is, our learning, our mastery, the way we show up. And so for me, I really see it as this celebration of self in a way that comes from within, not from what you think of me, not from what society or my teachers tell me that I need to be, or that coach tells me, but really being able to check in with ourselves. And then as we take the baby steps into this sort of becoming, then also like have the tools to really encourage ourselves through that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that you're bringing that back to self. It's we know our own truth and we can't find that truth outside of ourselves. So I think that's so important. So love that definition. It's excellent.
Thank you.
So here at Rebel Radio, we are passionate about activating wealth. And here's another word that has a lot of different meanings. So what does wealth mean to you?
So I love, because I also, I'm like redefining sobriety. So I'm also all about redefining everything. I actually thought about so I'm going to say this now, if somebody beats me to it, then it's because I've been procrastinating. So fine, take my idea if you want to start redefining everything podcast. But because I've been sitting on it for too long. So maybe this will light the fire under my ass to get it done. But, I'm all about, so I feel like also we have all of these different ideas of what is success? A lot of my clients really struggle with that too, is, I'm not as successful as I think I should be in this aspect. And, financial wealth is sometimes a big part of that, and to really feel like we can redefine whatever it is, that we can redefine success, that we can redefine wealth for whatever it needs to mean for us and however we want to define abundance or, you know, and you said something to me also where something about when you were doing my numerology, where you were talking about releasing attachment to the outcome, but also in terms of giving and receiving. And I think our wealth can come so much in other ways, like relationships, like, these kinds of connections, in other kinds of gifts that we might receive. And so for me, and I think that's been a really important one for me to realize, because there's been times where I have gone into comparison around financial wealth and worth, my worth and worthiness tied up in that, and what I think I should be making based on what other people are, and then, it came up for me really big a couple of years ago. And then I realized, I launched my business, which was really, again, in an area that was it was really new at the time. I was new to online business. I was living in southern Mexico. I also got pregnant at the same time that I launched my business, and I had a high-risk pregnancy, and then my daughter was born premature. And so a couple of years into that, I was being really hard on myself that I wasn't farther, I wasn't where I thought I should be. And it was really important for me to take a step back and say, okay, wait, maybe I don't have X amount of dollars in the bank right now, but how am I wealthy in other ways, in other aspects of my life? How am I wealthy in relationships? How am I wealthy in people that have shown me an enormous amount of support, in community, I'm in kind of crisis and I need a place to stay, offering me a place to stay. And so, and since then, I've really seen a big shift also in then I receive more because I'm noticing it and I'm grateful for it and I'm paying attention to it. Yeah. And so then more of that shows up for me because the universe is like, okay, well, obviously you're ready to receive this. You're noticing it. So here's more different kinds of wealth, so I feel like that was a bit wordy, but hopefully.
I love that because wealth is defined in so many different ways. And a lot of people are triggered by that word because we say wealth and we automatically go to Ferraris and mansions, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And I think that we need to define what it is for ourselves, again, from within, and then move that out and notice it and notice the synchronicities showing up in your world. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was talking about it with a friend the other day. It was actually really funny. Speaking of synchronicities, she was just jogging by as I was getting to my car right beneath my office here. And she asked me about how I found my recent place that I moved into. And every single time I've had to move, which I've moved 4 times in the past 3.5 years, which is not my favorite. And I definitely have learned to put building not going to be for sale on the top of my kind of manifestation list because that's happened to me. But every single time I've realized that when I've really been in faith and trust and belief that my networks and people who care about me and things will align. And so that's a way I've realized that I'm really I've been wealthy in receiving these amazing referrals into really cool places that are really affordable, that have, especially right now where I live in southern Mexico, the rental market is kind of exploding right now. And it's been harder and harder to find a certain range of with Airbnb and things like that. It's been hard to find a certain price range. And so she was saying, she'd noticed that. She's like, how have you found your places? And I was kind of describing that there's been this moment of letting go, of not writing down what I want and then taking a step back and not obsessively checking the rental listings and things like that. And I was describing that to her. Because she's also Canadian, but she's lived here for I think around the same amount of time as I have, 8 or 9 years. And I said, look, so many people, and there's so many people that care about you, and there's so many people that want you to find the most amazing place because she's going to have to move soon. I was like, focus on that. Focus on the fact that there's a lot of people here who love you, who care about you, and that things are going to align. They will. There's no other way for it to happen. And when you know that, then,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's funny, the synchronicity, because I actually just had a similar experience where I found my dream apartment in less than a week without looking in the classifieds. So there you go. Same story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what is one truth as an entrepreneur that you wish all entrepreneurs knew? Yeah, just one.
Just one. Oh my God. There's infinite possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that really, if you can think it or dream it, or stay open to even being surprised by what might come up, that really is one of the most beautiful things that we have the opportunity now with the internet, with being online entrepreneurs, but even if you're not an online entrepreneur, you know, that really with the world as the way it's evolved, that there really is space for everyone. I believe that, you know, and especially now too, with a lot of the shifting, very, very necessary political movements around, you know, around Black Lives Matter, around, you know, minority lives matter, around really making more space for queer voices, for example, and like more kind of traditionally, I'm not like doing air quotes because I don't believe it. I don't know why I did air quotes actually, but like people who've been really marginalized. I think the word traditionally, I don't like that word, but people who've been really marginalized. Like I was just looking on this website that somebody recommended me called Intentionalist. And it is a website for supporting traditionally kind of underserved or minority businesses. And I love that. Like, I just think that that is so amazing right now, and that we're really celebrating. And like, I've been a part of a few events recently where there was a huge focus on you know, celebrating and honoring Black-owned businesses, and you know, really actually within the event, you know, buying prizes and things like that to support these businesses. So I think that now more than ever, with this sort of combination of that awareness, and also with the technology that we have, and things keep evolving, and you know, in this online space, that really, it sounds so cliche, but I really do believe that there's space for you, you know, and if you doubt that, then try to surround yourself with people who will help you see what's possible. That's not to say that you're going to have all of the answers, or everything you're going to launch is going to work the first time around. Like, there's definitely still learning involved, always, but there's so much more diversity now, and there's so much more recognition and desire for different voices in this space, for different interests, for different skills. Like, now there's so many, you know, so much has gone online recently, you know, and people are really, I think, even people that were more resistant to it before are acknowledging that you can, you know, there's these really creative movements happening online too, of, you know, how do we keep evolving? And so I think that I would want everybody to know, every entrepreneur to know that, you know, your special, unique thing is needed. It really is, you know, it really, really is.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. Everybody's included. We all get to play.
Yes, please. Yes,
right.
please. Because also the space has been dominated by, like, you know, the like bro marketers, and a certain kind of like, you know, image of a female wellness yogi coach, you know, like, we know what those people look like. We've kind of been oversaturated with them. And I know that along the way, like, I've fallen into that sometimes. Like, I'm not that, you know, or I like, you know, I go into that comparison or lack, you know? And so I love now that there is hopefully going to be this continued kind of movement towards celebration of more diversity, more unique. Like, the more unique you are, the better now. I feel like, you know, like, great, bring us your rebel, bring us your, you know, like, outside of the status quo approach, you know, because we haven't heard from you probably nearly enough, and we want to.
More, please.
Yes,
more, please. Exactly. So what's one thing, here we go with the one thing questions again. What's one thing that
I'm
you've
a reflection of all humans, Cindy.
I can't do just one.
Exactly.
What's one thing you've discovered about yourself on your journey that has helped you to grow?
I think it really relates to my answer to the last question. But I think it is really understanding, like for me, for example, there's a lot of different things that I like to do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I felt like I needed to pick just one. And maybe I have sometimes needed to prioritize in order to make money or to get better at a certain thing online or not spread myself too thin as I've been figuring out my business. But since I launched and I really became an entrepreneur working for myself 6.5 years ago, what I've really learned over the years is that if something, you and I were just talking about this before we started recording, when you do what you love and you really honor what you love, even if it doesn't make sense right away, mm-hmm. That's really important.
Yeah.
Because that is, going back to the self-mastery also question and the wealth question, I mean, it's also related, right? It's like, that's you being true to you. And that's you just saying, you know what, well, maybe that person didn't do it that way, but that's okay. Or like, these people that I thought, or how I thought I needed to be in order to be successful, but I'm really honoring myself and I'm going to have fun along the way. And I'm going to enjoy this a lot more along the way. I'm going to receive probably a lot more along the way in different ways because I'm enjoying myself and honoring myself. And so if that means, that I start dancing in all of my videos, maybe some people might think that that's weird and they're going to unsubscribe, but other people are going to love me more for it. Mm-hmm. The more I've shared about different parts of myself along the way and become a more whole person, the happier I am, certainly. Mm-hmm. And the more I really form relationships that are not just relationship in terms of future clients or building community, but actually have become friendships, and people that I really, and that come into my space now in different ways too. I was listening to this woman speak at this online conference a couple of weeks ago, Laura Belgray. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's really cool. Laura Belgray, look her up. Her business is called Talking Shrimp. And she's a writing coach and a copywriter, but she's also just a very prolific speaker. And she was talking about how it's better to be well-known than widely known. And we've had this focus on widely known, how many followers, how many subscribers, how many likes, level, all that stuff. And then she was talking about how when you're well-known, that's how people learn to love you, because they actually know you.
Yes.
Not just like 10,000 people who like your pictures or something, but like maybe it's fewer. As you said, better to be well known than widely known. Mm-hmm. But those people, even, there might be fewer of them, but those people are going to really start to care about you. And that's one thing that's been really cool. Like I moved from online and I really missed people. And so I started hosting retreats and I started hosting different kinds of retreats and partnering with different people and like not being in my niche. Mm-hmm. All of the time, but because like I don't live inside of my niche all of the time, right? Like I am a person who, yes, redefining sobriety has been a big part of my life, but there's other things like my sexuality or just like adventure or travel or dancing, that are also important parts of me that I need to honor just for myself first and foremost. But then, as I said, they bring different kinds of people and collaborations and so is that a one thing? I don't know.
It's okay. I'm not going to limit you.
You're not going to turn off my microphone?
You're fired. I'm just kidding.
Like how people with the debate, the presidential debate in the United States, and with they were talking afterwards that they should have just been able to turn off the microphones because people couldn't keep it to 2 minutes. You're not going to do that.
I don't do that at Rebel Radio. I love it. Caitlin, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. And as always, we end the show with one last question. What do you dream of for the world?
You know, this might sound weird, but right now, I feel like it's such a strange time in our world. In so many ways, with the pandemic, with politics, with a lot of divisiveness. And I feel like we have all grown up, and in so many ways, we focused on these external markers of success, and we don't understand basic things like how stress impacts ourselves first and foremost, and each other. And we're seeing people act out, like we're seeing people with their central nervous systems like deregulated all of the time, and in fight, flight, or fight. Like so many people are just in that mode right now. Fight, flight, freeze. Sorry. And I think that's what came to me. I didn't expect to say that, but that's what came to me right now is like, I just want us all to be able to like take care of each other's central nervous systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And understand, like, imagine if all of this crazy that's happening right now helped us shift towards a place where we actually understood our physiology, our brain chemistry, like our brain science, where we actually started talking about these things more. Like, hey, and we'll remember back to a time where we'd be like, remember that time when everybody was going batshit crazy? Mm-hmm. You know, remember that time when you like were getting into and people were getting into fights online and going into all these like crazy theories and you know, and like politics was like even like it just, we were so divided. Like, you know, remember when we didn't understand these things about how our brains worked, you know, and like what we really needed in terms of like taking care of each other? Because I'm so grateful for my friends who like remind me to breathe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, who like, hey, Caitlin, like you sound like you're like running a marathon right now. You know, like, you know, or like who know how to gently help me. And I used to be so resistant to this, like who know how to help me gently remember, like, have you taken a break recently? Like, where you at? Like checking in, how's your heart? You know, how are you doing? Like, how much sleep are you getting? You know, like these things that we like for many years, I did not have people who checked in with me about those things. So I really hope for the world that we get to a place where we can like take care of each other on these like it sounds basic, but it's so fundamental. Like our foundation, our, you know, ability to function, to be these high functioning people that we think we should be and that we are a lot of the time, but like to like really nurture ourselves and each other.
Yes.
You know, and that's where we really connect, again, coming full circle to the beginning, to our humanness. Like that's where we really connect to, you know, to the things that we all need. Yeah. You know, we all need. I might have different dreams and desires. I might have had, you know, have different opportunities than you. But like we need to come back. I feel like we need to like call back to basics of like really, really nurturing each other, really, really taking care of each other, really asking each other, like, what do you really need? Reminding each other to breathe, reminding each other to slow down, to take care of each other. You know, that's what I really want, to take care of our central nervous systems, to understand what that even means. You know, that's what I really want for us right now.
I love that. And it's similar to what I dream of for the world too, is that I teach a course called Mastering the Brain Game that teaches people that exact same thing.
Yes,
so, and I
love that course.
Oh my God, it's amazing. And I want it to be a household verb so that everybody's brain gaming all the time.
Yes. Because imagine if we had that information, you know, how much more understanding and compassionate we would be with ourselves first and foremost, and forgiving, because it's like, this is our brains, it's the way they work, and when we don't understand that, then we're at war with ourselves, and we're at war with each other. Yeah.
Caitlin, thank you so much for being on this show. It was a pleasure having you.